but the Church of England having been removed from Australia or Commonwealth of Australia, then you've got, wouldn't you think that the Archbishop of Canterbury would be doing something about that, or could you call him in could you call him in from that angle?
Well, in 1973, Gough Whitlam passed the Anglican Catholic Corporations Act, and then in 1996, Howard passed all the laws for every state to change the Church of England to the Anglican Church. Now, I understand
by every state.
That was done,
from
but it was done
1975 to 1982, I think it was. I've got the act where every state removed it.
Yeah, that's correct. And the federal parliament passed the act, but then they took on and went after all the other religions. And that's when they decided that, based on the Unidroit Treaty of Rome, this is why Whitlam did it. The 10% GST all went to Rome. I've tracked this, and this is something that I haven't let out in the general public, and I don't think it's a good idea at present, but the 10% you've got to give to God in the Bible is given to them. The problem we have with that, the only ones who don't pay GST is the major corporate companies in this country, because they're owned by the Vatican through various overseas mobs, but the Vatican actually owns it. And that's why the GST came in. That's why he never took out all the taxes he promised to take out, because he couldn't. He had to get the money from somewhere. So that's how all that started. So there's a lot going on behind the scenes, but we are pushing to create the municipal authority of every state as a one body. And if we want to set up anything under that, because I don't know if you know, all the roads in this country are owned by the Main Roads Department, a federal government entity. And they're funded direct from Canberra to the so-called City of Geraldton, all the rest creeps, who pocket the money and then hit us up for rates to pay for the roads that we're already paying for through fuel tax.
Yeah.
And that's what they've been getting.
Please. Yeah, sorry. Wayne, can you just check up on 935, please? I've got the Red Book open.
Page 9.
And I'm not even going to go at you, please. I just can't find it.
Oh, that's okay. It's right here, 935.
It's under the states, but 935.
I'll be there in a tick.
Okay, so as soon as we resolve the page, which page we're on, we'll hear from Colette, then Rocket, then Spanner.
Yeah. I'm sorry to hold you blokes up, but...
it's all good.
No big deal. Hell, it's just something I need to know. So I think it's very important.
Yeah, of course it is. And, yeah, that's why I've been pushing it in their face, because it's here. I just got to find the page. But
yeah, I suppose, too, what ultimately I'm getting at is if there's a solution you can see through the Constitution where if everybody abandons their post, that ultimately the people have the authority to take control, because we are the supreme, absolute, uncontrollable authority.
Yeah, that's page 286. That's on that statement you just made.
Yeah.
286.
Yeah, that's it was asked of a politician what's the highest authority in the country. He would say the state constitution. That leads near the truth but doesn't reach it, because absolute, total and uncontrollable authority remains with the people. That's the one you're talking about?
Yeah.
One with the municipality.
Yeah, hang on. I'll get to your page in a minute. I'm still doing that while I'm talking. I can actually do two things sometimes. And I'm not a woman.
But you got a good one back in you.
Oh, I got an absolute beautiful one, mate. Best thing ever done.
Good evening, sir.
She said hello. 935. The states, and it's the 8th line down. It's on, quarantines in there and all that. Where are we? Yeah, 934, 935. No, I haven't found it, but it's in here. I know it is. It's all in here. Yeah, I'll get back to you that because something's
No problem. That's all right.
Eh? Yeah, it's the eighth line down. I thought it was
you didn't unmute me, Steve. I didn't fall off. You just didn't unmute me. I expected I'm muted.
You're up the top.
Yeah, I was trying to press another thing and I put my hand down, so I put it back up.
Well, that's what I'm sort of saying.
Oh, that's why I fell off. Okay.
Dick,
No.
Dick, it's 936, and it's the eighth line down. Municipal institutions and local government. It's 936, not because I usually say 935 to 937, and I always stop on 935. It's 936. And it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
This is under the top line is insurance.
Yep, that's it. And it says municipal authorities and local government.
Yes, I got it. Yes.
You got it?
Yes,
so
thank
that's
you very
the
much.
one.
Yes.
In future, I will say 936 instead of 935. Sorry about that.
That's all good.
No, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
I'm not too bad with 1,008 pages. Not too bad. I should be better, but I'm getting there.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was just going to say I vote Dick for Queensland governor.
No,
me too.
No, definitely not.
Is that the only reason you put your hand up?
No. I was also putting it up about when Wayne was talking about voting and stuff. And under the Australian Electoral Commission, anybody that now knows the truth will be committing treason too by voting, or you're just a traitor to your country.
Well,
so
your voting comes out as the state governor. He must select a pool of people, and we vote for one person once for both houses of parliament, both state and federal.
No, I'm talking about the voice voting, or anybody here now that knows the truth.
Yep.
Yeah. Anybody that knows the truth now, you're committing treason and you're a traitor to your country. So nobody should be voting on this here. You should pull out of the electoral roll because it's not our country what you're voting for. You're not voting for the people.
It's not our country.
So you will be committing treason or a traitor to your country.
Yeah,
so,
it wouldn't be treason, but it's a criminal offence to vote for where you don't have an interest in a corporation, and a corporation is illegal for making you vote when you don't have shares in the corporation.
You're effectively voting for a foreign power.
Foreign power, that's right, and that's against our constitution too. So.
Yeah, well, I can clarify a little thing there that they've got a problem with. Is they can't even call an election, or a referendum, simply because we have to petition the governor of a state through our representatives to bring up a particular issue. Like we say we're going to preserve Aboriginal cultural areas, we have to bring that up with the governor. He has to put it to the executive authority, which is 10 from the lower house, 8 from the upper, and they hold all the portfolios according to the Constitution. Only the governor can do that. That's 62 to 68 of the Constitution, and it applies at the state level the same as it does at federal. Now, that then all the it has to go to all the other states, and a whole lot of them has to put it to the Governor General through their representatives. Now, everyone's talking about citizens initiated referenda. It must come from the citizens because we're supreme. And they're saying, no, and it's actually a fact. It has to be initiated by the people to their representatives because we're sovereign and supreme.
But we haven't got a legal Governor General or anything of authority to be able to do that.
And we don't have a representative government because we've got political parties, so they're not. Our representatives aren't independent of another constitution that they're bound by prior, before the other one.
Well, Charles just put up a thing for a second and it come up on the screen. He said we haven't had it since 1959. We haven't had anything lawful since 1901, January the 1st. Now, if you, rather than take up the time here, I did an interview with Michael, whatever his name is, and it's on Facebook. I put every single bit of the law in relation to that there. He can reference that and you'll find out that there is no laws in this country. There's no parliaments, there's no courts, there's no police, there's no nothing. They're foreign agent government entities. They don't exist in law. Mm-hmm. And they haven't existed because they've never had the 6 states. Yeah, cafe locked out, that's the one. Now, you've got to understand, whether a lot of people say he's bad, and no, he allowed me to put everything that I needed out there so that people could understand. Now, as I say, my phone's open, my computer's open, I can give you all the information, but we need to understand there is no lawful election. So, Colette, you're correct. No one should vote, and if you do, you become aware of it. But the only problem I see is in Australian law, which they'll use to prosecute you. It says Joe Blow without lawful excuse did so-and-so. So by telling all the politicians, which I've been doing behind the scenes and they don't like it, I've taken out the system of without lawful excuse. I don't have one. So with Michael, I put it in there so that everybody could see it's out there in the public arena as well. So you've got to understand the law is an absolute ass, but it's put there to protect politicians. So if you go after them, the law says without lawful excuse. Look at your criminal code. It goes through all of the things in relation to treason in section 83, and it says unless they had a lawful excuse. So by telling them it's wrong, you've taken away their lawful excuse, which is what I've been doing. Mm-hmm. And that's just to assist what we're doing to go after them. So I just thought I'd add that so you know we can go after them, we can bring them down. We have that power.
And I look at doing that in the system of they're of knowledge.
Yeah.
Yes, they're of knowledge.
Around, write them a letter, they're of knowledge, and therefore that's the same as what you're saying.
Notice
exactly true. Exactly true.
Yeah.
We've done that up here, haven't we? We've given notice of knowledge on the courts, we've given on the police, we've given on the mayor, the CEO of the council, the councillors. Every one of them's got a notice of knowledge. So they're all aware of the knowledge.
Yep.
And they're standing now.
In Colette's case of the council, she asked to put all the stuff to the councillors, because the councillors are no different to like to you and me. So Colette put it all into the councils, and then she was allowed to address the meeting. And the CEO said, well, we've taken everything you've put in out because of such and such an act. And he turned around and put the whole council under treason, including himself, because he was of the knowledge of the act he was talking about where it took treason out of our criminal code. You can't take treason out of the criminal code if we're under a constitutional monarchy.
Yeah, well, the criminal code, the Commonwealth one puts them back in again because section 83 says if they breach the oath they owe to the people, and they all breach it by not taking it.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we've got the proof of that. We've got that recorded because they not only recorded it, they put it out for the public.
Yeah, well, that's good. That's what we need. People doing things to add to everything else.
The evidence.
End up with a huge story instead of just a little centre one. They can overturn a little centre one, but when the whole story explaining exactly the corruption is out there, these people are going to have to pull their heads in, or the public going to turn on them. We deal with communities 1,300 k's northeast of Carnarvon, which is 500 k's north of here, and we've now put Jacinta from Queensland into there to explain to them why they shouldn't vote yes, because we can't get anybody else to go there. It's 1,300 k's a long way to drive and 1,300 k's back, and it's way outside my pocketbook, I can tell you. But I deal with these people all the time. They ring me and ask me, how can I do this? But I've got actual Aboriginal elders come to my house. They're good friends of mine, and they're good people as well. And they are very understanding, because they said, they agree with me that where the Constitution says whereas the people, it doesn't say whereas black people, white people, green
That's
people,
right.
yellow
It's
people.
No,
colourblind.
it's
It says whereas the
colourblind.
people.
People.
Well,
So just in that area, when you're talking about that, I've said to people before, the only reason that you can vote be genuine and vote yes is if you believe Aboriginals aren't people.
Well, that's it. That's absolutely it. And we don't need to put them in the Commonwealth Constitution. Queen Victoria and all the state constitutions put every native shall be fed, every native shall be clothed, every native shall be housed, every native shall be given a small amount of money so that they can live a life similar to or the same as white people. That's in the state constitutions. Why isn't that put out there?
Wayne, was that 1%? Was that 1% of gross domestic product, like from Western Australia?
Originally, it was, but unfortunately, when they dumped the Western Australian Constitution, they left all that out, and they used the one with 32 sections missing to get rid of it, because it actually went to the High Court, and the High Court says, well, the only state constitution is we got this one, but I've actually got the original that says exactly what I said. It also says every politician will swear the oath before they swear their oath of office in accordance with 42 of the Commonwealth Constitution. So they're locked into doing it, and they won't do it.
Yeah. So when people are arguing to vote yes with a voice because they need this, they need that, they say, well, hang on, we already had this, and these dudes that want you to vote, they already took away what was there. So why would you trust them to do anything for the people now?
Well, the interesting thing is that comes up all the time is what took place on that mine site up north of Western Australia. With the permission of the so-called elders, and they actually weren't, they put all these artifacts into 2 big containers, shipping containers, and they were told to come and move them. They were given the money and everything to hire trucks to move them, because given what it is, and when it finally came out, it was actually human waste, and it was petrified, and that's what they claimed as sacred site. Well, you know, there's 2 ways you can look at that. If it was in a cave of significance that it wasn't, why would you want human poop that's turned into basically wood or rock or whatever and keep it as an artifact? It didn't make sense, but they had it. And by agreement and by payment of large sums of money from the mining company, and the person who told me that was an Aboriginal lady, but I also saw it on YouTube. She went on there and condemned them as frauds and liars for what they did to try and bring on the thing.
Oh, there is.
And what else has come out of this is our little Thomas Mayo is a Filipino. He has a Filipino Jewish mother, and he is Filipino on his documents. So he is not an Aboriginal. But, you know, they condemn a lot of things about Torres Strait, but Torres was the captain of the ship when Pedro the Portuguese claimed Australia as the great south land of the Holy Spirit. He was the only one that came ashore and did it, and they named it in 1936 or 37 as Torres Strait. Before then, it was just another island between Australia and New Guinea.
So was that around 1624 when?
1605.
1605.
Yeah, I've got the history of Pedro, but see, there was Hebrews in this country prior to that, and this country was actually named Beulah, Beulah, which is Israel, or under the Spirit of God. And that was long before any of these claims of Terra Australis and all that came into being. So, and I've been looking into that for weeks. I was given the information off a person, and it's actually in the dictionary exactly what it is. But we know there was Egyptians, then Nordic races, including Hebrews and including Vikings, all before about 1680, 1690, something like that. But then in if people are as old as me, and Dick might remember it if he ever went to the museum in Melbourne, you would have seen there was a big setup of how the Polynesian people came down and settled around the coast of Australia, and that's our current Aboriginals. I'm not attacking anyone. They were here before us. And I've always said, and I'm not racist because that doesn't exist, we need to find out where the sacred sites are. We need to, as a nation, and we need to secure that so people can't destroy them. They can't destroy them.
That's our history.
It's
and we
history.
need to know
It's our history. Yeah, and that has to be. And then, you know,
true history.
We got a lot of history that's hidden. Like yesterday when I did the video, most people haven't heard of Vasco da Gamas. They haven't heard of Dirk Hartog, William Vlaming, William Dampier, and all those other people who came to here after Columbus sailed around the world. And they claim big sections, including another ship, which I couldn't find the name of, which when the French came here. So to put forward the history how it is and lie to people, and it's not the Aboriginals that are lying, it's politicians trying to get control of this country.
Yeah.
They're lying. They created that. Well, someone wrote that book, Red Over Black, and that's a disgusting thing. That should be shoved up the nose of the person who wrote it. But, you know, I'd like to stick it somewhere else, but I'm not allowed to say that. But at the end of the day, I grew up with Aboriginals. One of my mum's best friends worked in Mills and Wares factory in Perth during the war. She was a Mundy. Well, the Mundys owned all the land at the airport, and I did their documents to file into the state parliament to claim back the $172 million that our lovely little Liberal Premier had ripped off him because he is part Aboriginal from the Mundys. And that's, you know, they're concealing it. Why conceal it? What are you ashamed of? I mean, I'm part Irish, part Spanish, part Welsh, part Scotch, and part English.
We're all mongrels.
No, we're Heinz.
Take a look at how many times has England changed hands?
Yeah, a lot of times. But it really overturned the whole system in the 16th to the 17th century with the Great Revolution in England, where it turned away from the Catholic Church into the Protestant religion of the Church of England. And they set up a complete system fair to everybody. If they complied with their law, which they're not doing anyway.
No. Now, we've got a few hands up, so we might move.
Well, Mel and James were there first, from me, and then Spanner too.
No, we got Rocket, Spanner, then Mel and James.
Yeah, all right. I don't mind. Which order?
I've got the, because I'm the host, I'm supposed to have the correct order, but we'll see how we go. Rocket, go ahead.
Good boy. I'll work with you.
Just a quick question on, we got a house loan, the voice is coming in, so we've got to pay rent on this land. So is it possible, do you reckon we could do a letter to the bank stating their claim to the ownership of the land if they don't own it?
Well, that's a good question, but my question to you is, my answer to you is they're not going to get it. And we've got stuff in place we're going to push in their face, and in England, but I can't go into that, it takes too long. But they're not going to get it. Hell will freeze over before I pay rent to anybody for land I paid off. And I know full well they're not entitled to it. And they're not getting it.
I'm a black fella. I'm not going to pay money to a black fella.
Yeah, well, that's exactly right. And my best mate, he lives in one of the elite areas here at the river mouth at Granite, and he owns his land. His kids own the land. He said, I'll spare the pricks before I'll give them any money. That's his words. And I agree. And, you know, when I was told they're coming up to punch holes in everybody with these injections, they said, what can you do? I said, well, don't shoot them. Throw spears at them, because they will come back then with your guns. Then you can pull your guns. But if you pull your guns up front, they have a lawful right to shoot you under their so-called laws. So, yeah, well, they did stand up to a lot of them. But when the Commissioner of Police, he's an absolute maggot, and now the supposed governor of Western Australia, he went up there and threatened them. We'll lock all your kids up and take them all off you if you don't get them jabbed. and that resulted in a lot of kids dying. You know, it's tragic. It brings tears to your eyes when you think of the atrocities. You know, talk about what took place in Germany. What about what's taking place in our country? We can do something. We're old enough, we're strong enough, intelligent enough to stop this crap. And Rocket, I'm behind you all the way, mate. If we can find, we're going to stop these pricks. I get angry when I start talking about them. I better shut up.
I'm not going to live on my knees, mate. You know, we've got to stand up some way, and I'll back anybody, and including Dick. If he wants to be governor, he'll need some bastard to sort him out, so I'll back him up.
Dick doesn't want to be governor, I can guarantee you that. But
I don't
push him forward.
I don't either, but we've got somebody for WA who does want to, and we've been friends for 50 years, and he is one strong dude, both in his talking. I mean, he had a couple of idiot kids. One attacked him, did a running jump, and you know how they do in karate, and punched down and hit him in the left eye and cracked his cheekbone. He didn't miss a beat. He just grabbed the kid by the thing and drove him into the wall and broke his jaw and everything, dropped him in a heap on the floor. And another one attacked him, and he did the same with him. And he's 71 years old. He's just one tough dude with a tough outlook on life and very capable of handling himself both physically and mentally. And he will be our first choice as a governor. He's a good one because he loves this country and everything in it. And he's part Italian, part all sorts of things. Like I'm a Heinz 57. He is basically too. But yeah, we need strong people with a strong outlook. The biggest problem we need is when you get them, drop their pants and see if they've got any balls, because they sure as shit got no guts. And excuse me for saying that, but we need blokes with balls. And that's the true sense of the word. Guts to stand up and say, don't do it because I said so. We have the authority. We are sovereign and supreme. We need to stand there and say, no, you're not going to do it, because we can.
Yeah,
we can.
Okay, so does that cover that for you, Rocket?
Yeah, mate. Yep. Move on.
No, good on you, mate. Thank you. Spanner.
That Constitution you were talking about, Wayne, is West Australia Constitution Act 1889, where they talk about feeding the Aboriginals and clothing them.
Yes, I've got all that here.
Yeah, no, so I'm just making sure I got this. Yeah, I got it here too. Thanks.
Yeah, it should be on your computer because that's you can access that. I was given all those documents by Governor Kyle in about 1979 when I was in the police force. I asked him how I get hold of the stuff, and he said, well, are you here tomorrow? I said, no, I'm not. He said, I'll be back in an hour. And he came back with a big heap of books. I mean, probably 2 foot deep.
Yep.
So, which is 2/3 of a yard or a metre for people who can't work that one out. I grew up with foot and inches as well as metres.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and I got a lot of information and fantastic information. I got letters patent for the Office of Governor, which is actually in the Red Book under Section 72 in the commentaries. It says the Governor General shall select all judges for the federal courts and the High Court. And then it goes on and says this section does not of necessity apply to the states that have letters patents, applying the same authority to governors of the states to do the same.
Yeah,
so
in our state is governor alone to appoint.
That's correct. And in letters patent for the office of governor for each state, it says the highest authority in every state is the governor, and he must be obeyed. Must be obeyed. In other words, you have to. You haven't got a choice.
Yes.
Yeah, but remember, the Governor General must take his advice from his Prime Minister. His Prime Minister and nobody else, unquestionably, according to Gough Whitlam.
Yeah, according to Gough Whitlam, but Gough Whitlam was, his boyfriend sacked him.
Mm.
Yes.
And that's the fact. John Kerr was Gough Whitlam's boyfriend.
But he must have got his advice from Gough to do that, because Gough said that's the only place he can get it from. So Gough must have advised him to sack him.
Yeah, well, the big problem with Gough Whitlam, the highest authority in this country in law, is the Governor General, and he's employed supposedly on a reciprocating letters patent issued by Queen Victoria, which is still in force. But in 1985, Bob Hawke issued a letters patent in the name of Queen Elizabeth II, Queen of Australia and her other realms, and then he signed it off, given under my hand at Balmoral this date by Her Majesty's command, Bob Hawke, Prime Minister. So he became the Queen of Australia.
Yeah, a nickname.
Bob
He
Hawke
did the same with the Australia Act.
Yeah, well, it's in that. I've got the book of the Australia Act, the blue one that says that in there, and it lists. But see, people think the Statute of Westminster is lawful, but it was put together by representatives of all the countries, including Australia. Well, we never had a lawful parliament, so it's gone. And Rocket, who is Bob Hawke? Bob Hawke is dead. He was a Fabian, head of the Fabian Society. And he actually, Robert James Lee Hawke, that's the guy. He was born to an Aboriginal mother and a Jewish father. And I believe he was conceived in Cooperpedia and went to Melbourne. And after the birth, we couldn't locate where his mother went. But he was actually adopted out to his thing. I do a little bit of research into these clowns because
he was also a Rhodes Scholar.
Yes, exactly. And that's where all Fabians get their teaching, from the Rhodes University.
Yeah.
And there's 8 of them sitting in the first parliament of this country. And the Labor Party was only formed in 1894 in England and came out to here because they date back to before the French Revolution. Their whole outlook on life is to destroy constitutional monarchies. And they did the French, and they financed and did Russia too, the Bolsheviks in Russia. They financed them. Isn't that interesting? That's all in their history because, you know, it's a hell of a lot.
Okay. So we've got Spanner unmuted waiting patiently. Go ahead, please, Spanner.
G'day, Wayne. G'day, mate. How you been, mate?
Yeah, I'm always good.
That's good. Listen, you know how they've been spreading around that the original people, weren't in the Constitution and that. Now on page 622, 5116, it mentions that it mentions them in there, stating that you know that they were special and that the government would make special laws for them. Now the problem is that a lot of people don't realise that they're already mentioned in the Constitution, and this is where a lot of people are confused about it because they've been programmed with nothing in schools. We're up against a headache because of the lack of research that the people are not doing, and this is what we're butting our heads about on brick walls. But the thing is like, I think you'll find that there is a lot of people waking up to the situation and starting to look into things. Now, we've been working our arse off down here in Tassie, and it was good to, you need to come down again there, Cobber. It's, you'll be quite welcomed down here.
We went down there last time and froze half to death, but I don't mind going down and doing it again.
Oh, look, mate, yeah, I've got an empty house here, mate, so you've got plenty of room and a nice warm house, a roof over your head down here.
Yeah, I did have last time. I was very well looked after, thank you.
Yep. Now, there is a few things happening in Tasmania, and like there's a few farmers and everything like that have got together, and there's 3 or 4 great big farms that actually are actually growing food and doing lots of things actually, and getting ready for the future of what they're trying to bring in and that.
Yeah.
The problem is though, and this is where I go back to Darren, is Darren still in, is he?
Yep.
Is Darren, have you been talking to some people down in Tassie, have you, or about your councils and different things?
Actually, I don't know which one he is. To Darren. You want to put your hand up, Darren? He might just have his phone still running.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
And they'll
Yeah,
be there.
because-
If you're there, Darren, you can throw your hand up. Brings you to the top of the screen so I can see. Anyway,
because actually there's quite a few groups down here, like in South, Northwest, and in Launceston that are trying to push this situation through. Is being able to get the councils together. There's quite a few people. There's no one above anybody else. They've been getting their farms together. They've been helping each other out by getting the food supply going, cattle, sheep, and everything like that. And what we're trying to do is make a how could you say, a self-supply of food type sort of thing. But yeah, it's getting to the other farmers and that. And I was just wondering with, you know, like yourself and that, and even Darren and that, is how to actually get to the majority of them and be able to pull them in to be able to do the same. Because I've been getting the word out there to the farmers and getting the Constitution, actually, you know, putting the Constitution out there on different clauses and everything like that. And a lot of them are starting to wake up and ask questions, and they haven't got any like what you've got to comprehend is in Tasmania is there's only 500,000 down here. The government is overgoverned, the councils are overgoverned, and essentially what they're doing is actually trying to strangle the actual farmers into a situation of submission. And this is where we're trying to work the opposite, is trying to get them up and running and make them realise that it's their land, that they can do something, anything that they want on it, combined, you know, to the law. And it needs, what we're looking at is getting a pamphlet done with dot points, you know, dot points, lawful recognition of the Constitution points and everything like that, and go and doing a letterbox drop, and I meant in all state. Now, the police, politicians and everything have got to remember that they live in our neighbourhoods too. And when people start to wake up, and this is where I think that even in Australia, the politicians are getting really, really scared, because they're trying to bring in foreign police and armed people into this country, which would be treason, gross treason straight up. Would that be right?
Yeah, under 114 of the Constitution, it's an unlawful army.
Yeah,
that's correct.
And even that's
and they're
exactly
running
right.
hollow-nosed bullets, which puts them in a position of being shot on sight.
Yeah, and now they're also giving them immunity. So how
you
this
can't
is what
give
I'm saying.
immunity. You can't do that, because this is the same with the bullshit they're going through with this stuff coming out of America, that they say all those chemical companies in America have immunity. Under common law, we're accountable.
Under common law, there's no immunity.
Do.
There's no immunity under the common law
or
law.
Give it. No, you can't.
Laws
give it.
even for all.
Well, the Constitution on page 676 says the Parliament is not supreme, and the very essence of federation is that must not be so. The Parliament, like everybody else, is subject to the law and must abide by it. And so they can't give themselves an exemption, because they're not exempt. They have to pay the penalty for everything.
They're not lawful to do anything anyway, because as you said, they haven't gave their lawful oath to be in any place of Parliament in Australia. And
well,
so
952.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, somebody just put up a thing
legislative. Sorry. Keep going,
that's
Wayne.
okay. I'll let you finish first, because you were talking already, and I should have let you keep going. You go first.
On page 952, Parliament is a legislative body capable only of exercising emanated powers Its powers are determined and limited by the actual grants to be found within the Constitution.
Yep.
Anything not granted to it is denied to it. So
Is denied.
unless it's
That's
there,
right.
they haven't got it.
Yep, that's what I'm saying. But they, as you know, they just do their own thing because they're a corporate entity, and this is the points that we're trying to push. Is they're a corporate entity. They shouldn't be touching the people whatsoever, or ordering, or putting their authority onto the people to start with.
Well, it's very
if
simple.
if he wants some information, look up the case FEJO, FEJO versus the Northern Territory. In that, refers back to a 1923 case where Sir Samuel Griffiths and Sir Isaac sat on that case.
Yep.
And what he actually did, they give a complete and thorough definition of fee simple because it comes out of Chalice Real Property Edition. And that is residual law that transferred from England to here and cannot be touched. And it's administrated, like, as I said before, your titles and your land is sold by and issued by the governor of each state, nobody else, on behalf of the Crown. It's transferred from one person to the other, alienated from the Crown. Alienated is totally without control. And there's another reference, page 346 says the statement you made in relation to authority granted or denied is on page 346. It starts, not all enactments of Parliament are valid, only those passed pursuant to, in accordance with, and under the authority granted by the Constitution, and those laws only. Abiding by the courts, judging the people, the rest are unlawful. And Rocket, you can get the red book off Tim Dwyer in South Australia. I believe it's under $200, around 180, including freight. We used to do it, but we can't possibly got that much work on. And I live in a caravan. So Tim Dwyer, you can get the red Constitution from him, and that's about the price. The green one, in comparison, is with freight and everything, is just on $300. So, now, and you don't want that piece of crap. It's blatant treason.
Now, Wayne, also on top of that, for them to be bringing foreign people into the country, as you know, it would be treason. But also for them to be dealing and what they're doing to the people in this land. Would that be also under the trade, international trade?
No, it's them bringing those people into this country is overturning. Tim Dwyer's got a website, Rita just said, so that'll help you. They're overturning the Commonwealth Constitution Act 1900 UK, which comes under Halsbury's Laws of England, Volume 2 at 284. The penalty for that is death by hanging or transport to the colonies for life. Well, we were the last colony, and we still are a colony, but they can't transport them to here. So I suggested in the Kalgoorlie District Court to Stephen Scott, the judge, I said, because he said, given what you've just put to the court, he allowed me to speak, and I spoke for 1 hour and 40 minutes. And he said, I guess you'll be coming to my hanging. I said, I don't want to hang you. I'll put you on Macquarie Islands, and you can freeze to death with all the other traders. And he went dead quiet. And then he actually, by the end of the case, he went out, threw his cloak and wig out the door, and came back and shook my mate's hand and said, you now have... you two keep doing what you're doing, because what you said and what you're doing is correct. And he literally pushed the case out, and it was for $2.5 million of stealing sandalwood. Well, sandalwood, like every other piece of flora in this country, once it hits the ground, is no longer flora. It's deemed to be dead waste. So that we had the case won anyway, but boy, we come out with some hot stuff in that one. But that was good fun.
The problem,
but anyway, the thing is. The penalties for treason against the Crown is death by hanging. And no, the death penalty hasn't gone because it required a referendum. It's an imperial act. They can't remove it anyway.
And they weren't lawful. They weren't lawful. They weren't lawful. 1960.
No.
It's still
Still
in the
under the
Crimes Act
Crimes Act.
1960.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, and that's where I was
Page
coming
21,
to the point
22, and 23 of the book.
Yep.
and that's
Okay.
where I was that was where I was coming is even under international law, under trade, they've also broken that law.
Yeah, well, they're all trading companies trading in this country as foreign agent government entities, US
Yep.
Department of Justice. And I forgot to say something earlier. FAR, Foreign Agents Registration Group or Act, has its office in New South Wales. So if anyone can find that, we can send all our complaints straight to them.
Yeah. No,
Okay.
thank you. Yeah.
No worries.
that's cleared
Thanks,
up.
thanks, Spanner. And I think Darren's
Thank
back
you,
there.
Mark.
If you had that question, you might want to throw it into the chat or cycle back in a bit later. So
Yeah, for sure.
thank you.
Also on that subject, the sons of Gwalia in that High Court judgment, they turn
Yep.
around and Gummo and Haynes stated that a company is statute created and the principles governing it must be derived from statute. That's why we have no common law in this system, because everything is statutory created in this, and they're all companies.
Under
with
their
ABN.
corporation. Yes.
Yeah, well, Grumau and Haynes are the pair of the biggest whackers ever been put in the High Court. But, you know, I know Haynes, he's married to one of the female judges in the High Court now, who came out of the federal court. That's how he got the cushy job of dealing with the bank inquiry. But he's nothing but a criminal. So I spent 17 years in the police force, and I did a lot of inquiries into a lot of these crimes. I said, Emma Perez, hi Wayne, how do I find Tim Dwyer to buy the book? Either go on the internet or go onto his Facebook page. He supplies them because we couldn't anymore, so he put up the money to do it. Can we pursue torts in Australia? I'll answer that one. Yes, you can. There's 5 books of tort. You can look them up in your library and use the tort. A tort is anything wrong created against you. Like I've got a tort against a company tried to steal all my patents for 500 million in tort, multiplied by 4 for the actual penalty and 2 for the costs. And that's how tort works in this country. Yes,
Okay,
it is
so
actually.
we've got Mel and James. Looks a little bit like James, I think.
Yeah, it must be a James. He's got a bit of a beard going there on his chin. If we put you to sleep, Mel, or James, he's disappeared, gone to sleep.
So what's going on there?
No, no, he was still
There's
on the
multiple people going into the courts. We're socking them with serious amounts of paperwork, like everything we could possibly throw at them, and they're still not listening. Like they're just total rogues. So when you got no judiciary, you got no police, you got no
We're lawless.
Yeah, we're lawless. And like we just been up against one of the head guys up in Townsville, and then I know 3 people that are pretty much run the same case, like with paperwork and documents, ABN numbers, CIK numbers, like the whole, we're throwing it at them. And they're just, yeah, total rogues. Like I got one guy with the cross-vesting act and he backed off. But this last one we threw the book at him, and I even made him get his driver's license out, and he says, what am I looking at? I explained it to him. Like, that's you in all capitals, that's dog Latin. Yeah, like everything we could possibly throw at this guy, and I thought, yep, I got him. We had the headwater cop, Queensland, in the stand, he lied. They backpedaled overnight. They produced a USB stick with a video on it to prove that I was saying the truth and all that stuff. And he walked, yeah, like if that was me on the stand and that happened to me, I would have got locked up. But because he was like up there in the police force, he's just walked and hopped back on a plane and off he went. But we've been fighting with them because this is in my heart, and I'm a fisherman, and what they're doing with Queensland, we're tangled up with WEF, Sustainable Development, right? And they're destroying us. Like, they got starts 31st of December. There will never be any net fishing inshore net fishing in Queensland anymore. And that's like hundreds and hundreds of families. And like, I was in a shop a couple of weeks ago, and everyone in that shop was whinging about fuel prices. The macadamia nuts prices just went to the floor, and all these people around here and macadamia farmers and stuff. But it's to that point. We've been doing this and we know what we're doing. We've got the documents to prove it. But yeah, unless Farah take it up and make a real big deal about it, we're just on our own. And the only way we can do it is every fucking Australian stand up. Because what Darren's doing now, and there's so many communities around Australia going on board with it, we just got to walk away with them, walk away from it altogether. And I suggest that instead of something like Camp Epic, we should do it in every state on the same day and just don't leave until they're removed. We've got all the documents to prove it, but it's getting beyond a joke. There's so many people in the since COVID have lost the shirts off their back, their businesses, they've lost family members. Yeah, I just can't see how Australia's not totally enraged, but they're not. They're just, yeah, too much fluoride in the water or whatever. But it's getting to a scary stage when nearly every person you talk to is doing it hard. Like, they've had like successful businesses and were upstanding people in the community, but they're all doing it hard. Like, in one way, shape or form, we're just got to all stand up, and we've got the documents to prove it. And if we go to every Parliament House and don't leave until they're removed, we've got the documents to prove it. And yeah, like, it's the only way it can happen, is just that we go there, we sit down on the bitumen, wherever we can sit, and don't fucking move until they're gone.
You're James, aren't you?
Yep.
Yep, I thought you were. In answer to a couple of questions came up, Dick, they want to know how they obtain a copy of your book.
Hey, it's on the PDF.
I've put a link into the chat. If people just scroll up a little bit, and you'll see the link says Law Solutions,
everybody.
downloadable PDFs. Dick's book is there. Also a number of other productions, if you like, that he's put out.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you.
Okay, so and also the link for the Zoom meeting is always on the front page of law.solutions. If you look that up, it's just LORE.solutions. There's no .com or .au or anything like that. Now, with what James is saying about what our solution is, there's something else that I've been saying to people, and only because I'm trying to get somebody to come up with a better idea. But I'm also thinking, if we had enough learned people, such as yourself, Wayne, and Dick Yardley, and even Tim Dwyer, and if we get people that can hold their ground and not lose their temper and that sort of thing, and that at some point we convened at a court. Now, it doesn't have to be in a big city. It can be in a country town. And we walk in there to take over that courthouse with the Commonwealth of Australia Constitution Act 1901 as proclaimed and gazetted. And when we do it, we go in videoing, live streaming, and we're connected to people that are connected to 10 that are connected to 10. Because I don't expect it to go well, but it's a matter of making a stand and making a point, and trying to get more people to be aware of it. Because at some point, we have to come out of the foxhole or come out of the trenches and walk into the enemy. They're not just going to go away.
Now, I understand what you're saying, Stephen. That's why we suggested we appoint governors, because a governor can set up a court, whereas we as normal people can't. And I know it's a lot of people have said you can have common law courts, and they're bringing them in from overseas and all their different methods. I mean, I looked at all of them, including what's the name, used to be the head of the truckies mob. They all have their things. And John Boy, what about the Navy? The Army, Navy and Air Force under Section 68 of the Constitution are under the direct control of the Governor General, no one else. So that's your information in relation to that.
Is that under
So,
the letters patent?
Yeah, it's
Well,
under
because
the
Governor General and Commander in Chief.
That's correct, and that's Section 68 of the Constitution. And his whole requirements are under 62 to 68, if people are interested in looking.
Okay. So part of the purpose of tonight, before you graced us with your presence, Wayne, was to establish a form of advertising, if you like, to advertise to other people, or if somebody came up with a better idea. Now, I've also been making inquiries because of somebody else about a radio station, and we've got access to shortwave radio, and it's not a huge expense, and shortwave can be repeated from other areas. So you're not going to get that many. I don't think that many people are sitting down with the shortwave radios. But if the communications went down, sometimes we may need another form of communication. So that's one thing. But I think that the corflute signs, like the politicians use, with A4 messages blown up to that size, so they're easy to read, but with direct points, it would be good to have a bit of a competition of people thinking and brainstorming to come up with stuff that people can read at a glance, because we need to get that attention. And if we use a sort of what they call shock print, which is the sort of thing that grabs your attention even though you weren't looking for it. So it's yellow, black, red, like bright pinks, whatever it is. So that's what I'm suggesting. And we've already had somebody in my local area up here that has done some stuff on geoengineering. And what she's done is gone through into had a marquee at just the local markets, and she just puts the signs up and she stands back. She doesn't try to sell it to people. She just sees who sees it and who's looking at it. And then sometimes she'll make herself available if somebody wants to talk to her. But it's really just trying to get more things in front of people. Like sometimes it might take them 3 times of seeing it before they actually want to do something about it. So having this conversation about it is to try and get people to think about how we get people into action. Now, I'll give you an example. We have a physical meeting that we have down the coast, and I asked people, and some others did, this same sort of question, and to bring along your solutions the following week. So the solution was only half the number of people came that were at the previous meeting, because people don't want to do it. So it's only going to be up to a few of us.
Angela just put a thing up. What about T-shirts? That's a good idea, because you walk down the street, people read them. But in Western Australia, we've got a group of people every Saturday and Sunday morning, or quite often Sunday, mostly Saturdays. They have all these banners, and they are shock banners like you're talking about, and they stand on the corner where all the people are, and wherever they've got these markets and that, they go and stand in the corner near them. It's reaching a hell of a lot of people. So what you're saying is absolutely correct. They do spread, but the T-shirts that Angela was talking about, absolutely. I mean, I put a T-shirt on given to me by somebody over east, and the reaction I got, where can I get one? So I sent them to where I got it from. What happened after that, I don't know. People look at a shock sign, and that's correct. We need all of that. And we need to get it out there, like you're saying, Stephen. It will work.
Yeah.
In Gympie and in Cairns, I put up pictures, and I was very surprised at how many people raced up and took photographs of the pictures. Like, Steve, if you can pull up total treason from within.
Are they pictures that you show them? Are they pictures that you sent me?
Yes.
Okay. Just bear with me for a moment, please. But talk amongst yourselves, gentlemen. See if you can think of something interesting for people to listen to.
Well, interesting is I had an inquiry about Dick's, I think Larry might have done it with you, Dick. The Voice of the Australian Constitution and another one you had out a while back, because people are interested. We could put them back out, but they go into great detail in very interesting text that comes on, and people don't walk away from it. They actually sit there and listen to it, no matter how how long it is. And this is, as you said, Stephen, it's hard to get people to stay there more than 5 minutes, but you can by chucking in a little bit of comedy. I went to, for instance, I went to one of those marches in Perth, and I wanted to keep people's attention, so we literally ran a competition how many times I would say maggot about Mark McGowan, and they let me talk for almost half an hour from about a 10-minute time frame I had, because people are there biting at the bit. It's that shock that you're talking about needs to be on posters, in people's face, and on T-shirts, on their cars. I mean, what's water paint on your car? It's going to wipe off. But if you're driving down the road and the Parliament of Traitors, call this number, we can give you the information why. That gives you, well, some of the people, access to where they can get the information. And you can always look up Wayne Glew or Rose Glew and PM us, and we can load all the information we've got on the notices of seizure and everything else we filed into England, plus all the other stuff that we've got, and some of Dick's stuff, like I think we've got the Voice of the Australian Constitution. I'm not sure. I know the Australian flag, we got that one. Yeah, there's Larry Hannigan, but I mean, Dick put that together as well, didn't you, Dick? Yeah, it's a fantastic.
Larry had that before I met him.
Yeah, well, those two
he's done that a long time ago.
Yeah, well, they're shock things, and they really work. And the amount of people that now are showing interest in it, I mean, we should really get some and put them out there, and they can get it off PDF off the computer. That's easy enough before we get blocked. But that's true.
The one he's got of the Voice of the Constitution, that's been transferred into, I think it's about 14, 15 different languages.
Yeah.
People have transferred it through, It's gone
right around the world. I knew it had gone to Scotland. I knew it had gone to Italy. I didn't know anyone else. But Angela just came back on. How does she get hold of me? Wayne Glew on Facebook or Rose Glew on Facebook. PM us. Angela, we'll deal with you. Not a problem. We'll help you, not deal with you. Sorry. And my wife will whack me with a fry pan if I keep saying that.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just having a little trouble. I'm getting these documents, Dick. For some reason.
Angela Reeves reckons she needs dealing with. Anyone interested? Sorry, Angela, it wasn't me.
Can we able to look watching of it?
Watch what?
This Zoom link up. Can we able to?
Yeah, well, we should be able to reference the access. He already said that on his website, which is,
No, I'm just saying that the Zoom that you just talk, what you're talking now.
And what we're talking now. Have you recorded all that, Stephen?
Can we share?
Yes, everything's recorded.
Everything's recorded.
Well, how do we get it so we can share it out? Because there's a lot of interested people here who can't go on the Zoom meeting.
Just send me $50 each, and I'll gladly send you a free copy.
A free copy, $50 each.
He's just turned into Mike Holt.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, look,
no, that's a terrible thing to say, Dick. No one can turn that bad.
Dick accidentally got muted.
Yeah, I'd mute Dick. I'd mute Mike Holt too. You know, he tried to get me to break my bail conditions. He rang me up and says, and I said, "Who's this?" He said, "Mike." It's me, Mike, and Wayne. It's Mike. I said, "You've been removed. You know, it's nothing but garbage. You can't talk to me, and I can't." So I hung up on him. So, Charles, hey, what's the best way we can get Wayne's documents? Contact me on Facebook. All right.
Okay, so Dick, I've got total treason, treasonous political parties, Queensland. That one?
Yep.
That's one you wanted?
Yeah, that'll do.
Yeah, we got that.
Which one have
Yep.
you got up?
Total
Which one
treason,
have you got up?
treasonous political parties, Queensland as the status as a
Jill,
sovereign.
your Zoom
As
live.
a sovereign.
Yeah, we
Right.
can't do that.
That there is Queensland Parliament. That
Yep.
was created when they created their own private parliament in 1992. They turned around and in their Act Interpretation Act, they changed one word 1 month. 6 months later, they changed another word. 6 months later, they changed another word, and they took the Parliament of Queensland to Queensland Parliament, which is a corporation. And that actual seal was created in 1997. Copyrighted to them.
And if you paint it black, you got the Iron Cross of the Nazis.
Yes. Yes.
That's what it is.
And the seal, the crown in the middle, if you go back to the original royal warrant, that is supposed to be an imperial crown, not the, well, some people call it a St. Edward's crown, but in the documents it's classed as a royal crown.
Yeah. Actually, I did a research into all the crowns, and they said, really, out of England, their view on the crown is whatever the monarch chooses to wear at the time.
That's
because
right.
Stephen Steers was pushing around the Catholic crown and all that. It's just the history of England.
The thing is, I've got the royal warrants for them, and it's what stipulates the royal warrant is what it is.
That's correct. You're correct.
Spears didn't have the warrants. Can you put up treason from within?
Well, see that seal there? That is on a bronze thing in Northampton, which is 45 k's north of here, and it was put there in 1907 by Billy Hughes. That seal was on it then. So that's how far back.
Australia, Queen of Australia.
Yeah, that one there. Yeah. So they've been playing with it for a long, long time.
Oh.
And Billy Hughes was a traitor to this country anyway, so it doesn't really matter. He's a flea bag.
Yeah. Can you put up treason from within, please, Steve?
Possibly.
You've got the proper Southern Cross there too on that. See the Southern Cross?
I haven't got treason from within.
98765. Them stars.
You have.
What's it called?
Treason from within Queensland, Queen of Australia.
Ah, gotcha. I got that one. Come on, open.
Must belong to the government. It won't open.
While you're doing that, Stephen, can I just talk to Dick? Because Dick, he was saying about that meeting we had in Cairns with putting his posters up and that, but there was a big cry out for your notice of knowledge too, wasn't there, Dick?
Yeah. Yes.
Everybody up there really wanted to serve.
I spoke. A lady rang me up today, and I spent about an hour and a half, 2 hours with her today, and there's talk about me having to go back up again soon.
Yeah, because they were very vocal on serving.
Keen, as long as people are keen, I'm prepared to spend the time.
Yeah, there was about 70 people there.
Apparently, there's a group there that's want me in a room on their own. Group of about 5 or 6 people want me in a room on their own, and just to go straight through with what I left behind, the stick that I left behind, because it's like in the 2001 Constitution, when they put that in on the 6th of June 2002, as I explained to the lady, they put another act in exactly the same as that on the 6th of June 2002, but they removed Schedule 2 out of it, which is 15 pages of treason.
Yeah.
There's the very same day and the very same act name and everything. So they know
If
what
you
they're
go-
doing.
If you go back there, Dick, you got to pluck a chalk. The premiers, they pluck a chalk. Pluck her and drop her in a pot.
So I think the one treason 1973 is very simple and clear.
Yep.
So we could probably put a few more dog words over the treason is
Well,
Australia, the political party Great Seal.
Yep.
Yeah, you got treason from within Queensland?
Yeah.
Queen?
Yep. It's on screen
You got
now.
it up?
Yes.
Pluck a chalk
Okay.
on the top left-hand corner.
Yes. Now, that or every governor, because in the Australia Act Request Act, they turn around and demoted state governors to governor and councils.
That's
And
correct.
they turn around and still call him a governor, but the governor doesn't, because you can't represent the Crown in a sovereign independent federal nation in a geographical sense, there's no Crown authority. So they're just governors to do with the executive government. In other words, they're just sitting on their ass keeping the bloody seat warm.
They're actually members of their parliament.
That's right, they are.
Yeah.
They got no Crown authority whatsoever. So anything,
correct.
and like every state tells you that the laws from that time forward are only purported laws, purported acts with purported enactments.
That's correct.